Started already.
Oh, y'all be quiet. We're coming up in just a couple more seconds. That's right. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So much is happening in the United States today, in the world, and in a city or town or hamlet near you or that you inhabit. So we've got to talk about this. I've gotten some calls from a lot of reporters who want to talk about Chicago because the ICE raids and the ICE detention centers are really at the center of our national discussions, our local discussions, and our international discussions. I'm going to be talking with someone on tomorrow's shows about the profit motive in these detention centers, uh, the voluntary work program that has people working for $1 a day so that they can buy toiletries. And if you push back, they will tell you to use your own hands to
I have a
clean
quick
yourself.
emergency.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to
No,
have to
no,
start again.
I'm sorry. I got.
No, it's
I
okay.
got. Give me 1 second. I just
Okay. Well,
saw.
you know what I'm going to do?
No,
I'm
give me
going
a
to go
second.
on. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, everybody, well, just hold on a second. Oh, I mean, it's awful. When you read, I'll send you some of these stories on the voluntary work program, Daryl. It's and they have hired these, and these private prisons
Hmm.
have been hiring. They have been shaping the national dialogue. They're the ones who've been lobbying. I'm not going to even talk about the lobbyists. They have been lobbying. Um, they've been lobbying our lawmakers to change the laws, and so it's been shaping the discussion on immigrants and migration so that they could bring more of them in because we have because they're doing the work. Number one, they're the ones who actually run these prisons. They're
Right.
the workers. They're the cooks. They're the janitors. They do everything. So these corporations can make money hand over fist.
Right. And the scary part with that also, Santita,
Mm.
is that with the private entities that are running the prisons, many of them don't have experience
Oh
at
no.
running a prison. They're just looking at it from the business aspect,
Hmm.
not the security and the other aspects of what it takes to run a
Well,
prison.
but they're not getting hardened criminals. They're just locking people up, and then private industry has a captive audience. So there's all of that. So we're going to have to really, really understand that. But we need to understand, what's going on today, Bernadette and everyone. We're going to be talking about um, a
I,
little bit of that. But, we've got the president who has tweeted out that,
I am so sorry.
that, oh, no, it's okay.
Santita,
That
can
the
you hear
governor,
me?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to bring you in. We're going to start
Ah,
again. We're going to start again in, no worries,
I
in
am. I am so sorry. You got. Well,
40
let me tell you,
seconds.
my two dogs. They're, they're doing they're doing repairs on the roof, and the guys left the gates open, and our two German shepherds got out, and I saw them going down the street.
No, no, no. You got to get them because, okay, wait a minute. We're going to come up in 20 seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
No, no, no,
No,
no. Don't
no
worry
worries.
about
No worries.
it. Don't worry about it.
Glad you got the dogs back.
Thank
Oh
you.
God,
It's because you
my
you
wife
would
would
get
have a fit.
charged. Well,
Yeah,
you would
yeah,
get charged if they hurt
yeah.
someone.
And they're two big German shepherds.
Hmm.
Okay, hold on, which means they're horses. We are up in
Yeah.
2, 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We have got a lot to talk about. The Chicago ICE raids, the raids that are coming to Portland, and that really are going to be spreading all across the country. And they're not going to stop in blue cities, everybody. This is something that's much bigger than partisan politics. That having been said, it is at the center of local, national, and global conversations. People around the world cannot believe that this sort of thing is happening in the United States, where we are watching the militarized takeover of our living spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? What about the Insurrection Act? What are posse comitatus? Of course, Daryl Jones, you can explain all of that to us. because we need to really understand that the laws that were put in place after the Civil War, we haven't gotten over the Civil War more than 150 years later. Civil wars are dangerous and they are devastating because they pit families against each other. What did the president say? President Lincoln said, "A house divided cannot stand against itself." And that's what happens in Civil War. And so coming out of the Civil War, we said, okay, we'll never, ever, ever, ever deploy our troops and put them over American citizens. That's too dangerous. Indeed, President Lincoln welcomed the rebels back into the national fold with open arms. He said, if we have a grudge against the South, we'll never come together. We can't do that. So we're not going to treat them as hostile forces. They are our brethren and our sisters, and we are going to embrace them and move forward. Indeed, the people who are being sent to Chicago are not the Illinois National Guard. They're bringing in people from Texas. So it's like you're setting us off against each other. What's really going on here? Well, part of it that we'll be talking about tomorrow is the profit motive in these private prisons. Detaining these immigrants, these migrants, is big business. Bringing them in is big, big business. We can get some more people to work for cheap. That's how the country was built, on unpaid or underpaid labor. And we have not learned the lesson yet. But let's talk about an America in which the mayor of Chicago, the third largest city in the country, and the governor of the state of Illinois is being threatened with arrest by the president of the United States. The deputy chief of staff, Stephen Miller, did something very interesting on CNN yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. He talked about the plenary authority of the president to use the military, something that I caught on TikTok. And CNN, for their portion, has wiped this interview out. What's plenary authority? That means open-ended authority to do whatever it is that you want to do. And when Stephen Miller realized that he had said that under Title 10, we can do this, he froze. And I tweeted it out, everybody. I'm kind of racist with my tweets. I said, this is interesting. He caught himself and he froze. And he acted like there was a technical difficulty and he couldn't hear anything. Now, sometimes that does happen, everybody. And the host kept saying, can you hear me? Stephen, Mr. Miller, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Because he slipped and he said the hidden part, that the president is using the military at his discretion. The National Guard are very interesting because the officers and the National Guard's persons are sworn to two different alliances. They have two different allegiances. The officers are sworn to uphold the Constitution, but the soldiers are sworn to obey the president. Something to be said for all of that. We need to really, really unpack this, and we can unpack it. We need to unpack it. We need to understand what we're looking at. We need to understand why people are now looking for their IDs. They need to walk around with them. Every time I'm out with people, I ask them, do you have your ID with you? You need to have it. You need to have it because you could get sent somewhere. And we might not see you in Chicago, but that is how we get down. We have black sites here. Think about that, where people are disappeared. I'm not trying to frighten you. You shouldn't be frightened. What you should be is active. You need to get involved. And you need to make a decision about where it is that we go from here. Dr. King asked us that question almost 60 years ago. Chaos or community? What are we going to do? What kind of society are we going to have? We can't just mindlessly go to work every day and think that things are going to take care of themselves. That is what a monarchy does. Other people are taking care of your business for you. But in a republic, you've got to take care of business for yourself. So what are we doing? What has got the president so riled up with Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, that he has threatened to, as he said in his social media, quote, Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also. So what do you make of that? And what about the Insurrection Act? He continues to push in Chicago, and just outside of Chicago, the troops are here, but they haven't come into Chicago just yet. Chicago is the most American of cities. We are highly organized. Now, I mean, and I will say this as I wish my father a happy birthday. Reverend Jackson has done his work in this town, but he's not been alone. You've had a lot of people, but he has done so much of the work to help us to learn how to organize labor, to organize preachers, to organize teachers, to organize everybody, to organize you on your block. And so did Mayor Daley. The Chicago machine was organized to the block. So what are we looking at right now? You got the president. Let me just start with you. We've got Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. I've got the two Darrells with me today, DJ and DG. But one is wearing his collar today, the Right Reverend Darrell Gray from the Progressive Baptist Convention. He's head of their social justice ministry. And of course, Attorney Darrell Jones, host of his own show along with Barbara Arnwine, the brilliant attorney, on WOL DC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Help us to understand Attorney Darrell Jones. And you're a former prosecutor also, so you've had to interact with the police in another way. And Darrell, Reverend Gray, you also come from a military family in a very, very military-friendly state, my father's home state, South Carolina. You know, the Citadel. I mean, so it's the culture there. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just, giving you all a report about what it is that we're looking at. So, Attorney Darrell Jones, let's start here. Or where do you think we should begin? With the president saying that he should arrest the mayor and the governor, or the Insurrection Act, which he's been threatening to use? You choose. I don't even know where to begin because to me, it's all conflated, it seems.
Well, Santita, there really is no good place to begin with the mess that we're dealing with right now. So the best place to begin is wherever you jump in and start trying to clean it up. And let me start off by picking up one thing that you did say, and certainly wishing Reverend Jackson a very happy birthday. I know I have now learned that the entire month of October is his birthday month, and he celebrates every day. So he takes advantage of every day. But with that being said, when we start, just sort of unpeeling this onion that's here of what's been presented to us in this situation in Chicago and in other states as it's been laid out, I cannot recall a situation where a sitting president of the United States has decided that, he had the power to say that there should be a governor and a mayor that should be placed under arrest for protecting their city, for standing up for what they believe, for standing up for what they believe they should be standing up for. And that is precisely what Governor Pritzker and Mayor Brandon Johnson are doing. And hats off to them. And I hope they continue to stand up and push back. And I hope the people of Chicago get behind them and push back and stay with them in this battle. I don't think there's any more clearly could lay out, when we start talking about authoritarianism, when we start talking about, those types of autocracies that are occurring, that this is the model of what happens, is that they want to create the confusion. They want to create the fear. They want to create a situation, in my estimation here, if the president and Steve Miller and his gang can create a situation where it appears as though there's a lot of discombobulation, a lot of fighting that's going on within the state, a lot of confusion and one-on-one, and you got the southern states National Guards coming to the northern states to fight the northern states. This sounds like a civil war, right? This sounds like insurrection. This sounds like insurrection. And if they can create this bowl, this pot, this clay of insurrection, then he can put forward the Insurrection Act, which says, in essence, that he needs to act as the president because there's an emergency going on within the union that needs to be quelled, and I need to call in the National Guard. I need to federalize all the National Guard and federalize all that's necessary for me to be able to go in and to quell this unrest that's going on. That's the situation that he's trying to create. And let me just lace another layer to this, because it doesn't hit me with deaf ears. It doesn't fall on deaf ears with me that the administration recognizes that we are now at the beginning of the 2026 season of voting and preparing for the midterm elections. And they recognize, I truly believe this, they recognize that if they lose control of the House of Representatives, which they very well may, if they lose control, then there all of a sudden guardrails, investigations can be spurned and thrown their way, because all of a sudden there'll be a branch of government that can really hold them accountable and make them really sit and answer questions with regards to what's going on and protect the people. That's a large part of what's happening, I believe, right now. So what we see building up in Illinois, what we see happening in Portland, what we see happening in Memphis, what we see happening in D.C., what you're getting ready to see happen in Baltimore, all of these are areas where if they can create enough confusion, if they can create enough to put in place the Insurrection Act, and then start questioning whether or not elections can safely be held. That's the concern that I see. The immediacy right now for Chicago and Illinois is dealing with the ICE agents and dealing with the situation of a year ago, I thought it was all crazy when I heard all this talk about the Civil War and they want a civil war and all this other stuff. Not so much now. Because
didn't Dwight McKee tell you on this show? And everyone thought, not everyone, Bryce Green and Dr. David Gibbs, there were some outliers, and Robert Patillo, who said, you need to understand the foundation that's being laid. What has been revelatory for you? I mean, because what in this rollout has revealed something different for you?
I think the thing that really hit it off for me and became really clear, was I think when they started to take ICE into all these communities, when he really started using them as his personal policing authority to go out and go after people, and then weaponizing the Department of Justice behind that to go after his enemies. And when you start pairing all of this together, you're weaponizing the attorneys that are part of the Department of Justice, weaponizing the ICE agents, bringing in Customs Border Patrol to assist as well. Then you start to see that this isn't just an occurrence. This is really a well-planned, well-organized, orchestrated, and purposeful act that's going forward. So that's when I believe, for me, that the lights truly came on and the music was coming out loud and clear to see this is where this is headed right now.
Should we take seriously the president? Well, I don't dismiss anything that anyone says, but when he says that Brandon Johnson, and he mentioned him first, should be arrested, and Governor Pritzker, too. What does that say to you?
I say they should pay attention to what happened to James Comey, right? I say they should pay attention to what happens to all the people that he names as enemies, and he points Pam Bondi to say, go get them, and she goes to get them. They need to be very wary, because it's not an empty threat. I think it's a very full threat and full-throated with regards to what his next action is going to be. And folks, people try to defend him, say, oh, he's just joking. No, it's not a joke. This is his intention. This is what he wants to do. If he's able to do this, and I say this and I say it and I'll say it again, once he's able to do this, it's not just about Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson. It's about every governor and every mayor that think that they're going to stand against him when he's doing these acts and has the ability to do those acts across the country. The message is being sent. And that's what we've got to be certain that we get, is that this message is being sent. And right now, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson are on the front lines of response to the message that the administration is going through, and what they want to do and roll out across this country.
And just understand that if people don't hew to the party line, Reverend Darrell Gray, they don't feel safe. My brother, who's in Congress now, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, said the Proud Boys have been escorted into the the chambers where they vote.
Mm-hmm.
So as these congressmen and congresswomen are voting, they literally have these people staring down on them.
But
You got
as
Marjorie Taylor Greene who's saying, I have a great life. I am not trying to kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if a foreign government wants to kill me, I want you all to know I didn't do anything to myself. I mean, we're living in a time where, you know what, I mean, and she's come out on healthcare. She's like,
Right.
wait. My children said that their premiums are going to double. They've already lost her.
Right. And they lost her around the Epstein files as well.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
boy,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, for Marjorie Taylor Greene of all people, um, to come out against this administration, because she was a standard bearer for the
Mhm.
administration on some of the most radical, conservative, ultra white, right uh, opinions that this administration had. But going back to Attorney Jones's point, when we talk about him calling for the arrest of an African American mayor, um, in
And you
this
think that
particular
his race
case,
is relevant?
I think it is relevant. It's not the first time that Donald Trump has called to have a black person unjustly arrested.
Mhm.
And so this is not his first rodeo. But I do agree that it's not just racism. I
Mhm.
do agree with that wholeheartedly. Uh, Attorney Jones mentioned it when Trump talks about the enemy of the state or the enemy within.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
When he talked about the enemy within, and he talks about former Speaker Pelosi, and he talks about Senator Schumer, and he talks about others, he is talking about anyone who disagrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's the enemy within. And the enemy within his circle, not the enemy within the country, but the
Mm-hmm.
enemy within his school of thought, his political thought, his
Mm-hmm.
economic agenda, his capitalistic agenda, whatever. That's that's the enemy within. And he's saying that not only within America, but he's now saying even within our own circles, be it younger white conservatives or those within Congress who are Republicans, he's expanding that. And so, yes, I mean, because obviously Pritzker's not black, he's not African American, but he is the governor over Chicago, which is the third largest city in the country, and a large African American constituency, just like Memphis, just like Baltimore, L.A. And he's going to continue, because he also said in that same diatribe, he said, and generals. He said, and to all the generals in one spot, like some form of military, that was the most unmilitary thing ever, to have all your generals and admirals in one spot and then broadcast it all over the world where they're going to be. Uh, as a former military person, that's unconscionable. But saying to the generals, and we can use these places to test our military.
Mm-hmm.
And so Attorney Jones is right. All of this falls under one very insidious school of thought. And that school of thought that I have, and I'm not big on name calling, is to use the term unhinged and deranged is an understatement. I think that this is more insidious than a lot of us. And maybe that's because the average person is not looking at it. And Attorney Jones, he and I, we share the same name, but we share a lot of the same beliefs on what is happening across this country. When we talk about it, and Stacey Abrams talks about it a lot, these 10 steps of authoritarianism.
Hmm.
And how, as we look at these 10 steps, sometimes we're not understanding where are we in this? I mean, without a doubt, he has done everything he can to weaken competing power. He has done everything he can to go after Congress and make Congress complicated and make governing the country complicated. He has threatened people who disagree with him. He has tried to. He's gone after the judiciary. He's weakened the Supreme Court. Uh, he's gutted the government. He's done every. The Attorney Jones is absolutely right. He's following this playbook, and you're right, Santita, and your dad's right. If we don't push back, and we're saying non-violently, we're just making that very clear. Attorney Jones talks about it, or you talked about this idea. Wait a minute, this looks like civil war. Missouri is sending National Guard troops out. The Missouri governor has agreed to use Missouri National Guard. Man, I'm gonna tell you, I live in Missouri. You don't want those boys in any urban city.
Why?
They've never been in any urban city. They don't know. They don't know what the culture's like. They haven't interacted with people of color, and so that in and of itself is problematic. Now, Joy Reid would say, "Well, listen. Let's be clear. They're only sending most of these National Guard troops to urban areas around more." Uh, um, Business areas, commercial areas, trying to protect the tourists and the visitors and the consumers. But in Chicago, that's not the case. We see of instances in Chicago where there've been problems, and we don't doubt that that'll happen in Memphis because, as Minister Farrakhan said, there are places in the hood that you don't want to send the Texas National Guard and the Missouri National Guard. And so Attorney Jones is absolutely right. What is this shaping up to be? And is this administration trying to push us? And when I say us, those of us who live in urban areas, are they trying to push us to a place where we will say, where Pookie and them will say, where Jose and them will say, enough is enough, and we are not going to allow it. So, like I said to you before, this is an extremely timely, well thought out, critical, vital conversation, and I applaud you during your dad's birth month. I applaud you for having this conversation, and I'm hoping that other talk show hosts and radio show hosts and others, because it's not stopping. When it happened in D.C. and we started talking about it, Attorney Jones, it didn't stop.
Hmm.
And we cried out about it. We shouted from the mountaintops how bad this was, how blatantly discriminatory and bigoted and stereotypical and prejudiced this was. We used all of those words, and it didn't stop. It's just it's going on because this president has said, "I am the president. I can do what I want to do." That's what he said. And so that's where we are. Now, no riots have been reported in Chicago. Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But protesters have been tear gas.
But I would say also that's because Effie Ross, sending her much love. She's a legend here in the world of church radio. And Chaparral and Robert and Stephen and John, whether you all are, and Mike, antagonize all you will. I'm just glad you're part of the conversation. Just keep it respectful.
There you go.
I'm wondering, I think as we look at him, though, Reverend Gray,
Hmm.
if we don't look at the tech bros and this overarching agenda,
Right.
because I was reading the article in Wired magazine, which helped me to read Attorney Jones, about the complete surveillance that we're living under, and how basically in social media, that's what we're looking at. With social media, I mean, they are
Right.
looking at every stroke for stroke, everything that you do. And if you want to
That's
get a
right.
job, everybody, people comb your social media. They look at your digital footprint.
Hmm.
And we were looking at China years ago, and we said, "Oh, look at them. They're not free. They're going to get a social media score." I'm like, we already have that here."
Right.
And so I'm looking at, it's just like behind the migrant crisis is migrant legislation and private prisons and unpaid labor.
Right.
Mhm.
So if we don't
Absolutely.
follow that chain, and if we don't follow the chain of surveilling Americans and keeping us under control, because now we don't have freedom of passage.
Mm.
I mean, Reverend Gray, look, we are in straight from, unlike the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia,
Right.
which is south of the Mason-Dixon line. That's Baltimore still is that. But when you, this is Mississippi straight up, from
Oh, no
Mississippi
doubt.
straight up to Minnesota.
No doubt.
I mean, Daryl, it is,
Mhm.
and it's the culture. Emmett
Mhm.
Till is from Chicago, and he went
Hmm.
home to Mississippi. That's what we do. And I'm just wondering where we will go with this. I mean, how will the Texas National Guard look upon Chicagoans with all that they've heard about us? I mean, this is the OK Corral, right? I mean, these
Yep.
folks here are wild and crazy, and they're violent, and we got to get them in line. And
And that's
I don't want to stereotype people, but
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But you're right, Santita, and I think that is it. I think that this administration is setting up a situation where it wants us to overreact or
mhm,
it wants us to react violently. They've already decided, okay, in order for this to work, who can we blame? So they weaponize DEI, they weaponize diversity and equity and inclusion, uh, because it because that protected us, that protected women, that protected children, that protected people of color. It protected immigrants. It protected the disabled. It protected the labor community. And so they understood it. So that's why they went out originally and weaponized DEI and all of that. So they had to do that. They weaponized, they use this word, okay, illegal, alien, undocumented worker. And so they had to do that in order to be able to say, oh, wait a minute, you look like an undocumented worker. You look like an
mhm.
illegal alien. So they got to put the words out there first, and then they said, okay, now that we got the words and we've got the green light now to go after the illegal aliens or undocumented workers, what do they look like? Because as Attorney Jones said the last time we talked, they look like all of us. Until we open our mouth or until we're asked for ID, we are that target group. And so that's what happened because you have to have that scapegoat. And once you've identified that scapegoat, and once you put that pressure on that scapegoat, we've gone into hiding. We've kind of, some of us, not me, but some folk have entered the fetal position and said, I'm not going to do anything, including a lot of Democrats,
Mhm.
and right, including a lot of Democrats. But our fear is if we don't move quickly, as you're suggesting, that somebody is going to say, wait a minute, we have fought too hard, we have died too young, we have bled too profusely, we have prayed too long to let these folk come in and take our voting rights and take our civil rights and somebody, and I think that that's what's happening. We are being pushed And until and unless, and thank God for Transformative Justice Coalition and
Mm-hmm.
other organizations, and Rainbow Push, who are saying, okay, listen, let's meet so that we can strategically and effectively come up with a game plan for Chicago. And Chicago, I think, is doing a heck of a job. But so that we
Mhm.
can continue to work in Chicago, so that we can do some work in Memphis and be prepared based upon what is happening in Chicago and Memphis and these other places, be prepared for when they come to a city near you.
Mhm.
Mm.
And that's not an if, but a when, because
Yes.
it's coming to a city near you. It's going to happen. Santita, one of the things that's really interesting is that if we roll it back a couple of years, and I guess it's maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you'll know the exact time frame because you're in the city I'm about to talk about. Uh, if Texas decided that they're going to put all these folks, these illegal immigrants on these buses and send them to some cities across the country, and they sent them one city to send was Chicago. We're going to send them to Chicago, right? Isn't it interesting that now where we stand, that Texas is the state that is now building the largest camp to hold illegal immigrants in the United States. They've received the federal funding now to bring them back under a private prison to hold them for some period of time and to do the very labor that you're talking about, Santita. Put them to work doing labor. No idea when they would be released, how they would be released, or anything else. I put all of this together, Santita, and there's a business side that's to it, as you lay out. There's a political side and a power side that's to it, that deals with what's going on in these cities and what's happening with the federal government and the policing. Yeah, there are all these pieces that are to it, and we've got to bring it all together and be certain that we, as a people, have the opportunity to put in place some of the guardrails to start to undo some of the things that are done. And I caution people, If you're asking, what can I do? I'm just, Joe Smith. I'm just Jane Doe. On October the 18th, all across this country, they're going to have No Kings 2 that's going to be going on with people that are standing up saying, no, this is not a monarchy. This isn't a kingdom. This is a country. This is democracy. We demand to be heard. We demand that our rights be respected. That's one of the things that we can definitely do immediately, Santita. We've got to get people involved. It's always said that a closed mouth doesn't get fed. Well, guess what? If democracy is survive, it needs to be fed. In order for it to be fed, people have got to open their mouths and demand the change.
What do you do in an off year? I mean, there's no election right now, right? So, what can you do now? We're looking at the 2026 election, but that's a year away.
Mhm.
What
I
should we be
think,
doing
yeah.
right now?
I think when I met with your dad and with Reverend Jeanette Wilson back in July, one of the things that she said that the Push executive were interested in is beginning the tours, to go back and be, when Dr. King said, where do we go from here? Maybe we need to go back to what got us to here.
Hmm.
And so the Southern strategy. So, and I think that Attorney Jones has said it. Now is the time that we educate. Now is the time that we put together the mechanism, the infrastructure, the apparatus, so that uh, when early voting begins and mail-in voting begins, we're ready to just flip the switch. And so that's what we need to be doing right now. And
Mhm.
so the rallies are good. At those rallies, let's get names. Let's make sure we get names. Let's make sure we know who are doing the organizing, so that we can continue to follow up. Let's meet in Chicago at the Rainbow Push office and talk strategy. Let's meet on October the 15th in DC at the Supreme Court. Let's meet in Montgomery, Alabama on the 5th and the 6th to have these discussions. Everywhere, let's meet as often as possible so that we can begin to identify who's going to be involved in what. Let's begin our planning right now. Let's put our apparatus in place right now. Let's get people in place right now so that when it's time, and so you said it, you're absolutely right. And as we're doing the organizing, because you can't do organizing without education. Dr. King said that. The first two things that we have to do is inform and educate. People are not going to
Mhm.
get mobilized. You inform and you educate.
Right.
And so that's what you're doing. And that's why this administration is going after people like you and going after the media and making sure that they control social media like Twitter and X and all these other things. That is the reason why. And so that's why your show and Joy Reid and Rowan Martin and others, these shows are so critical because y'all are informing and educating.
Right.
And so we need more of this. And I think that that's what we have to do leading into 2026. I mean, and then finally for me, you know, this administration has incentivized private violence, man. They, like you said, Daryl said it, National Guard into communities, not to protect protesters, but to arrest them. They've militarized the federal agents. They've sent Marines in the communities. I mean, they sent Marines, not National Guard, but they sent
Don't
Marines.
they belong on the water? Okay. I
But
know we're
but
Lakefront community. I'm
but
just look.
but
I'm
I'm
trying
U.S.
to keep my
Army.
thing straight.
Yeah, I'm
I'm just.
Army. But Santita, I'm Army. You don't even send Army and you Marines go in first to clear the way. They're the first ones in, the last ones out. Marines have a very specific mission. They're not like the Air Force. They're not like the Navy. They're not like the Army. They have a very specific, and like you said earlier, when we talk about who answers to who, a
Mhm.
Marine in a Marine's training, it is ingrained in a Marine's training simply to follow order, not to question it. And that is a scary proposition. And in you don't want it anywhere. We didn't want it in Vietnam. We didn't want it in Kuwait. We didn't want it in Vietnam. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. We saw what that got us.
But
But you're
wait.
talking about on American soil?
But let me ask you this: do you not have an obligation? If something, don't you have a code of ethics, a code of behavior that governs, that prevents you from committing war crimes? I mean, that was Lieutenant Calley. I remember that
Mhm.
as a little
Yeah,
girl. I mean,
My
that
My
was
massacre.
that,
Yeah.
that was so horrific that in real time, I remember a dramatization of it on television.
Hmm.
And my mother explaining it to me because my parents opposed the war, right? So, I mean, don't you have rules that govern
Yes,
how you're supposed to behave?
you're
So,
right.
my question is, how do you think that the National Guard would feel in any way conflicted about being placed on American soil? I mean, I heard the gentleman who is heading up the detail, the National Guard here in Chicago,
Hmm.
and he's all in. He's going to clean up Chicago and get these people straight.
Hmm.
And I said, whoa, this is dangerous because they've been told, you have S-hole nations. Well, we've got an S-hole city, I guess.
Hmm.
That's running
Yeah.
rampant. And the fact is, Mayor Johnson's policies have driven crime down.
Yeah.
He's opened up mental health centers. He gave our children jobs this summer. So, I mean, crime has dropped down a lot. Now, mind you, one violation is too many.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm not diminishing that. But what I'm saying is when you deny people food, clothing, and shelter, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, should you commit crime? No.
And you said it. And Santita, you asked the question. I'm a veteran, honorably discharged. And
What does that mean?
that means for me, and I'm speaking to other military folk too, you're right, there is a code. It first of all, it's the Constitution. uh, Number one, but it is the military code for criminal justice, military code of justice that we follow. We've got a military code of justice that we follow. But you're absolutely right. That other part is this, and My Lai might have been a stretch, and I get it, But we have seen already in Chicago the disbursement of chemical agents
Mm.
near elementary schools. And so all I'm saying is it's just like police. 99% of police are good folk.
Yeah.
They want to obey the law. They want to treat everybody right. But all it takes is one. The military, the same thing applies. You've got racists in the military, just like you got racists on the police force. And you got bigoted people and folk, again, who don't understand this culture, who may not be racist, but may be racially insensitive.
Hmm.
And that by itself might cause them to slip and think that their response or their action is justified because they're present. Because I've been called here, that obviously means that I'm supposed to be here. Because I was sent here. I'm supposed to be here. The other part of that is focus individual. You've got individuals, you got humans who do human stuff. And
Hmm.
so you look at January 6th, a lot of those folk were military people.
Hmm.
You got and so I don't discount anything. I'm saying that this administration is setting up a situation and an environment and circumstances, as Attorney Jones said, that is setting up the perfect storm. I agree with and the fact that military are there and should follow a certain code. The reality is that police are not doing it, and so why would we expect it why would we expect somebody in the military not to exhibit their racist tendencies, or they're bigoted or prejudiced or homophobic or xenophobic tendencies in a community that it doesn't live in, that it doesn't understand? Why would we expect them? And so I that would be my response. And I think Attorney Jones, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, no, no, no. I certainly don't think it's you, Reverend Darrell, but I do. What I do want folks to walk away with, though, is this: is that what we're experiencing now from this administration is not something that just happened. It's not something that took 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or 4 months. Project 2025 was a period of time that it took to assemble. All was it 922 pages or whatever the length of that book is? It is their blueprint for what they're implementing. And so, one thing that I fault the Democratic Party for, and anybody else, is not having a counter to Project 2025. When you recognize that that was going to be what was going to be implemented upon victory, what have you implemented to go against that? What has been the response? And everything that I've seen thus far has really been piecemeal in terms of, there's a shot here, run over here, there's something over there, run over there. No, there should be a comprehensive approach that's there, a comprehensive strategy that's put in place. And Santita and Reverend Darrell, it's exactly as you're saying, is that, someone needs to call the family into the room, to say, here's what's happening. X, this is your area. Y, this is your area. A, B, C, and D, this is y'all area, your expertise. But there's got to be an approach, a comprehensive approach that goes into place. That's precisely what we're seeing right now with regards to what's happening in Chicago and the other areas, and the fight really between the cities, the state, and now the federal government, and what's going on in that takeover. We need some type of approach that other states can learn from. Okay, Chicago, this is what you've experienced. DC, this is what you've experienced. Learn from each of those experiences and put it in place to figure out a way to counter what's going on. One of the things that DC did, Santita, that I love, because they had rolling roadblocks through DC where they were stopping folks and assuming that they were possibly illegally in the country and demanding their identification. What did the DC residents do? They went online and started putting together a network where they would tell folks where these rolling roadblocks were, where
Mhm.
this is what's happening here, this is what's happening there. Use the cell phones to be certain that everyone saw what was happening in the communities. There got to be approaches like that in dealing with the on the ground part, but there also has to be a comprehensive approach to deal with the overall strategy, because that's what's missing right now is an overall strategy. We're just responding. You got to, at some point, you got to go on the offensive. But right now, we're just responding to the bombs that are going off and to the firecrackers that are exploding.
Well, and my question is how we get from here to there. And I think we have to keep our eyes on the prize, where we're trying to go, because the government is shut down and Democrats are holding out on health care. And as laudable, as honorable as that fight is, healthcare still has a middleman. This is still saving an industry that really has no right to exist. The health insurance, industry. Yeah, I'm saying it. You need a universal single payer system. We can't even get to that while we're stuck on this. Because the windfall after this is all over, because they're going to get the votes. Anytime you're getting Marjorie Taylor Greene, she is strengthening other people. You got Thomas Massey, who really is an independent Republican, who's saying, why haven't you sworn in Congresswoman-elect Grijalva,
Mm-hmm.
Raul Grijalva's daughter? Why haven't you done that? She won. Really? Because the thing is, the Epstein genie is out of the bottle. You cannot stuff it back in there. People want to know what about these girls, what happened, what's on the list. It's already out here. And they want to know if people have been blackmailed and who did it. And what did you do how was that? How were our elected officials coerced, blackmailed into acting against the interests of the American people? That is out here. Now y'all can get mad with me if you want to. It's out here. I didn't start the fire. I cannot put it out. We have got to look at paying people a fair wage. You can't just let in Ukrainians, say nothing about it. I don't know anything about their inboarding process. And then all the brown and black people are demonized. That's not going to work. I need to know about these private prisons that are making people work for $1 a day. And if they don't work, the dollar pays for toothpaste, toilet tissue, soap, deodorant, the basics. And they're running the prisons. This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't even understand that these private prisons, they have been lobbying Congress and our state governments so that they can bend the laws. And then everybody has to talk about the problem that we've got. So we've got to arrest them because we have to keep them in business. We're keeping all of these immoral, amoral companies in business. No wonder America's falling behind. You can't be blessed doing this, Reverend. This is absolutely insane. And we're having this, but we've got to have this discussion. I was in the grocery store yesterday picking up something for my parents. Every other person spoke Spanish. I said, oh wow. And I looked at these people and you could see that folks, that there is a chill in the air.
Yeah.
And that is a horrible thing to have all of these people this frightened. When you have people who are frightened, there's no safety there.
Well, that's the plan. I mean, like you said, I think that we all agree. At the end of the day, that's the plan. Uh, Attorney Jones mentioned Project 2025. That's the playbook. We weren't prepared for it. And like you said, we're still running behind. We're still running behind the ambulance. And all of it will culminate, at least to this point, next year, and they understand it. And so what do? Everything that they're doing, they're making sure that the vote again is skewed. And they're saying, okay, uh, how are we going to do anything to change the vote? How are we going to be able to manage this or massage this? You got to convince people that no, that voting is not going to be safe.
Hmm.
You're going to have to convince people that voting doesn't work. You're going to have to convince people that voting doesn't matter. You're going to have to convince people that because you are in a state of poverty, that's where you're going to be. You're afraid. You're going to continue to be afraid. And at the end of the day, we just get exhausted of all of the things that are happening. People are just going to become so exhausted. And that's the game plan. And we need to continue uh, what we're doing now, as your dad would say, to keep hope alive. It's interesting that we've got to go back. Uh, we, to go back to that. We've got to, you know, that's what it's all about, and that's our job. But it's not just through flowery and fiery sermons and speeches. We're not going to be able. No, Attorney Jones said it. It's going to be through organizing, not through flowery and fiery speeches and sermons. But we're going to have to organize. And I want to make it clear. And I read something that one of the people that's listening said. The reason that I say what I'm saying regarding the police and the National Guard, uh, I remember the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I remember what happened that day when police officers
Mhm.
and Alabama National Guard, they had the same rules that police and National Guard have now. Those rules haven't changed on engagement, but we see what happened there. And so they don't. You're going to have certain people who are not going to abide by the UN policies and the treaties and all that. So stop the foolishness. And I don't usually respond to ignorance. I usually don't do that. But I think that your listeners need to understand um, that this conversation we're having, uh, if people are listening, could save a life. Not just save a vote, but we're talking about saving people's lives, and as you said, or their livelihoods. And the prison industrial complex is real, and we know that we're seeing it every single day. The numbers are going up.
Mhm.
The numbers are not going down. People incarcerated, the numbers are not going down. They're going up. And so all of this, even as Attorney Jones said, the black sites, the concentration camps, and the irony of Texas sending undocumented workers to Chicago just to send the posse after them. Really?
Follow the money, Reverend Gray. The bus
Yes,
companies
yes.
that were paid to bring them here and all over the country. Uh, the money that's being made in the detention centers. I mean, now they're opening up ICE to 18-year-olds. Instead of having re education programs so people can become part of the 21st century world, you know, and instead of looking at Silicon Valley and the technical world, how are you all going to be moral? How is it that you all can get away with saying that there are too many people in the world? How is it that when Bernie Sanders says that AI is going to cost us 100 million jobs, no one is screaming about that? What do you mean it's going to? So if it's going to cost us 100 million jobs, what is one third of the American population going to do? What are you saying? What are you saying? But I think even this discussion is very important. This, to me, while it moves us away from that, we have not settled slavery.
Mhm.
Reverend Gray and Attorney Jones, we still think slavery is okay. If we didn't think it were okay, we would shut down ICE
Right.
and we would find a way to pay these people a righteous wage, a livable wage, and we find that way in all of these corporations.
Mhm.
I don't. If you work in a fast food restaurant, you should be paid a wage that can help you to live.
Mhm.
I mean, we come from our grandparents were able to get working class jobs and send our parents to college
Right.
or get them on their feet. That's impossible now.
But Santita, when you put 350,000 black women out of work,
in
You already have
February, March, April,
right,
May, June, July, in
right.
6 months.
You already have you. We've already talked about it. The Attorney General. We've already had black men incarcerated disproportionately, and so now you incarcerate black men. You use most of them, particularly in state penitentiaries,
Hmm.
doing doing prison labor,
Slave
Mhm.
labor.
which is slave labor. And now you said okay, and now you're talking about 350,000 black women out of work, and then you're going again, just to follow this along, this whole idea about undocumented workers and or people of color, you're challenging minimum wage. The whole mechanism is set up to destroy and to disintegrate black and brown families in this
Mhm.
country, to put them back on poverty rolls. And when you put people on poverty rolls and people have got to make a choice on how to survive, again, it's all of it is connected without a doubt. And is it a larger conversation? It's really not. It's not rocket science, y'all, what we're saying. But I think that more of us need to say it. And again, I know we're beating a dead horse, but what's the
No.
plan? What's the plan? I'm waiting on Attorney Jones. What's the plan? I'm waiting.
So,
Well, first thing we're going to do is meet, right? So we
That's the
can,
plan.
because I mean, I think as I get closing thoughts from each of you, I, I one of my sorors reached out to me today, and she said, "I can't believe we are having this fight." I said, "But are we going to ask less of ourselves than our ancestors gave to us?" I said, "If every black person who went to college heard of Louis Compton, the struggle continues." Well, if the struggle continues, that means the issues are still here,
Right.
and the world keeps spinning. Okay, so the thing is, we've all got work to do, and so you're right. What is the plan? We're putting it on you, Attorney Jones. Oh,
that's fine. That's fine. I am open
devil you.
to I'm open to have it placed on my shoulders and the shoulders of all of those of us that are out there fighting for voting rights and fighting for civil rights.
Right.
And this is what I'm going to say about that, Santita, because it's not something that's placed on any one person's shoulder.
Right.
It's something
Right.
that's placed on everybody's shoulder. You don't have to be the person that decides to run for president. You don't have to be the person that runs for Congress. You don't have to be the person that decides to run for a state assembly position. You can be the person in your house that begins by saying, I need to get involved. I need to vote. I need to learn the issues. I need to organize. You could be the person in the neighborhood that says, I need to be
Right.
part of the local school board so that I know what's going on in my school. This whole movement of where we are now, it didn't start a year ago or 6 months ago. It
Right.
started years ago, and it was years in the making. So we've got to be certain that we're all involved, that we're not sitting on my statements, Santita, you know what I say. You can't stand on the sidewalk and wonder what's happening in the street and say, boy, they shouldn't let this happen. At some point, you got to get off the sidewalk and get into the
Get into
street
the
and
streets.
be involved. And that's where we are right now, is that folks have got to get off the sidewalk, get into the street, and to get into good trouble in the name of protecting the community.
Right.
I heard what Reverend Darrell said, and you said, Santita, with regards to those that are incarcerated being loaned out and stuff. There's a book that I recommend, Slavery by Another Name. Folks need to go get it. Slavery by Another Name. It lays it all out with regards to that industry and what's happening there. And I'm going to end it on this note. Because it's so important that people organize on the community and neighborhood level, and because it's going to go up, it doesn't go down, it's going to go up. Leaders will listen when the community is speaking. Leaders will listen when the community speaks. But one thing I do want to lay out is that what we see happening right now with ICE, Custom Border Patrol, I call it the profiting of hate. Because what's happening is that you have all this money that's being paid for these ICE officers, $80,000 plus signing bonuses. All you have to do is promise to go after them, those that we're being taught and preached to dislike, to say they're not like us. Go after them, and you can profit. That's the concern right now. We've got
Right.
to be certain that we organize and understand all of this, Santita.
Amen.
Reverend Gray,
Bounty. Yeah.
I got a minute for
Yeah,
you.
yeah, bounty hunters. I mean, that's what it is. Bounty hunters. I mean, they used them during slavery, how they sent them out to go find slaves who had got away. I mean, that's real. I agree. I would like to just add in the last 30 seconds, let's expand the tent of activism too, of activists. I know that the Transformative Justice Coalition has been doing it. I know that Rainbow Push has been doing it. We've got allies out there who are willing to stand with
Mhm,
us and by us, and some of them in front of us
mhm.
to shield the blow. We need to make sure that they're included in that
Yeah,
conversation. And don't get me wrong, I think that a lot of times we've got to lead. We've got to be clear about the fact that there are instances where we should be leading. But in every instance, we should know that there are people out there who are not black, who are not brown, who share the concerns of human
that's
rights
right.
and human dignity for all. And we need to make sure that they're in that room and they're part of that discussion as we move forward.
And they might not share the party,
Mhm.
and they
Mm,
might not be our allies on a multitude of issues.
exactly.
But if
Exactly.
we can agree on this issue
Right.
and that issue and that and that and that one, then we have a jumping off point.
Yeah.
I believe we just have to do this piece by piece, piece by piece. I I'm going to work on interviewing Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's
Mm,
upset some of my progressive friends. I said I do not have a problem with her.
mm,
I said I disagree with her on some things, but I saw something very interesting. We were waiting outside of Leader Jeffrey's office in 2023. When it took them 1,000 votes to try and get a speaker, and that
mm,
was my brother Jonathan's first term. So we're there like 3 or 4 extra days, literally. And just outside of Leader's office, all of the congresspersons come off the floor.
mm,
So as they're sitting, as they come off the floor, they literally bump into Reverend, and they were all like, "Oh, who? May I take a picture?" I don't care what
mm.
party they were from, because they
Right.
acknowledge him and the contributions he's made, and now that he's no longer threatening to them, they're much more relaxed. The person who greeted him probably the most warmly was Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Mm,
She stopped and she said, "Oh my goodness, Reverend Jackson, I'm so honored to meet you." And she crouched down because he was in a wheelchair. She
mhm,
said, I just, I'm so honored. I just thank you for all that you've done for our country. Just
mhm,
really." And he said, "I would like to talk with you." She said, "I would love that. I would welcome that." And yeah, I can see the way she functions. And I know because I've been up on
mhm,
the Hill because my brother's up there and I've been
Mhm.
up there just doing some other work. She's one of the friendliest people you're going to meet. I don't have to agree with her on everything. Some of my political allies are some of the most unfriendly people I've ever met. I don't do that. My thing is, if I can agree with her on Gaza, however she got there, I'm gonna work with you. If
mhm,
I can work with you, if I got your vote on health care, and we can get these people back to work, and we
mhm.
can come and maybe I have some space with her to talk about a healthcare system that works for everybody.
Right.
Maybe I can even sit down. I might not be able to make it at the first pass. Maybe I can tell you, I live in Chicago. The militarization of our streets, that's a bad thing. It doesn't make me feel good.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, everybody, we don't have the luxury, as Reverend Ike said, of a negative thought. You don't have the luxury of making anyone your enemy
Mhm.
because it's too many of us who have too much in common
Mhm.
and too few
Right.
ruling over us all.
Right.
Think about that, everybody. Think about it. Really, really, really. So I love you, Reverend Gray, the Progressive Baptist. Dr. King was right. We did need a new convention, and I thank you very much for that. Attorney Gerald Jones, of course, on WOLDC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow, everybody, we are going to talk about uh, the profit motive in these detention centers. See, we've got to follow the money always.
Mhm.
Mhm.
follow that money. We're going to talk about that. In the meantime, God bless you. Have a great one, everybody.
All
The
right.
Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.